What happens when two of Boston's biggest and most well-known personal injury law firms decide to take each other to court? It sounds like the plot of a TV drama, but this is real life, and it's unfolding right now in Massachusetts. We're talking about a legal showdown between Sokolov Law, a firm that's been around since 1979, and Jason Stone Injury Lawyers, also known as JSIL. At the center of this feud are allegations of stolen trade secrets, deceptive business practices, and even conspiracy. It's a battle that's not just about money, but about reputation, credibility, and the future of two powerhouse names in Boston's legal scene. And let's be honest, when lawyers are suing other lawyers, you know it's going to be messy. The drama kicked off when Sokolov Law filed a lawsuit on August 13th, accusing Jason Stone Injury Lawyers and one of its top executives, Keith Glover, of stealing trade secrets. According to the complaint, Glover was once a director at Sokolov, where he learned the ins and outs of how the firm operated. The lawsuit claims he took what the firm calls its digital operations playbook and brought it over to his new workplace at JSIL. Sokolov argues that this wasn't just casual information. This was the very blueprint that powered the firm's success for decades. In fact, they described it as nothing less than the wholesale theft of a business model. Now, let's pause for a second. The idea of a digital operations playbook might sound vague, but Sokolov insists it's a lot more serious than that. At the heart of their claim is an internal website designed for case managers and a series of documents outlining everything from client procedures to marketing strategies. According to Sokolov, Glover copied this website in full before leaving, and the firm says they even have records of JSIL employees accessing the system thousands of times over the past 2 years. They argue this proves the stolen content didn't just end up at JSIL. It was actively used as part of the firm's day-to-day operations. In fact, Sokolov claims the digital footprint left behind created what they call a digital signal, which pinged their servers every time someone at JSIL accessed the content. Over time, this added up to more than 53,000 instances of alleged unauthorized use. To put it bluntly, Sokolov is saying they caught JSIL red-handed, repeatedly logging into a website they weren't supposed to have. And to make matters worse, the complaint alleges that when Glover was confronted, he admitted to taking the materials but downplayed them as mere templates. But after that confrontation, the firm says JSIL scrambled to move the content around so that Sokolov would no longer be alerted whenever it was being accessed. But that's not the only accusation. Sokolov also claims that Jason Stone Injury Lawyers went a step further by copying and reusing the firm's branding materials and even some of its marketing campaigns. For a law firm that prides itself on having a strong public image, this cuts especially deep. If true, it suggests that JSIL not only took operational strategies but also borrowed elements of how Sokolov presents itself to the public. And in the highly competitive world of personal injury law, branding and visibility are everything. Of course, JSIL isn't staying quiet. Less than 2 weeks after Sokolov filed its complaint, Jason Stone Injury Lawyers came back with a countersuit of its own. And instead of denying the allegations outright, their response shifted the focus back onto Sokolov. The countersuit accuses Sokolov Law of engaging in deceptive practices and running what it describes as an illegal business model. According to JSIL, Sokolov isn't really a law firm in the traditional sense. Instead, they claim it functions more like a call center that funnels clients to other firms while using questionable advertising and marketing strategies to lure people in. This countersuit makes some explosive claims. JSIL alleges that Sokolov routinely engages in bait-and-switch tactics, misleading potential clients with ads that don't reflect the firm's actual services. They also accuse Sokolov of creating fictitious third-party websites that appear independent but are secretly tied back to Sokolov. These sites, according to the countersuit, are used to capture leads and steer clients in ways that may not be entirely transparent. On top of that, JSIL argues that Sokolov has misled clients by referring them to law firms that themselves have been accused of fraud and unethical practices. If that wasn't enough, JSIL is also accusing Sokolov of conspiracy. The countersuit alleges that Sokolov has worked hand-in-hand with other firms to engage in what they call unfair competition, all with the goal of damaging Jason Stone Injury Lawyers directly. And here's where the countersuit really flips the narrative. Instead of JSIL being painted as the villain for allegedly stealing information, they're now casting Sokolov as the one running an unethical and deceptive operation. In their words, Glover's departure and the allegations against him were just a pretext for Sokolov to go after JSIL. As you can imagine, both sides are digging in. Sokolov has dismissed the countersuit entirely, calling it baseless and a diversion tactic. They argue that instead of addressing the theft of their trade secrets, JSIL is trying to muddy the waters by throwing around big accusations that don't hold up. They're confident that a judge will see through what they call an attempt to distract from the real issue. Meanwhile, SIL's legal team is insisting that Sokolov has failed to provide any meaningful evidence that their materials were actually copied and used. Their stance is that nothing specific has been identified that directly ties back to Sokolov's work. What makes this case so fascinating is that both sides are essentially accusing the other of being dishonest at the core of their business models. For Sokolov, it's about protecting intellectual property and the systems they believe gave them a competitive edge for decades. For JSIL, it's about exposing what they claim are deceptive practices behind one of the biggest names in personal injury law. And because both firms are so prominent in Boston, the outcome of this legal battle could have ripple effects across the legal industry, not just in Massachusetts but nationally. Another angle worth noting is how personal this case has become. Sokolov's complaint takes time to detail Keith Glover's career path, emphasizing how he went from being a mattress salesman to a six-figure operations professional under their mentorship. By highlighting that, Sokolov is making the case that they essentially built Glover's career and trusted him with sensitive knowledge, only for him to take it elsewhere. For JSIL, however, Glover is positioned as a professional who brought skills and expertise into their firm legitimately. The battle over how his career is framed adds another layer of tension to an already heated dispute. So, where does this leave us? At the moment, both lawsuits are active, and it will be up to the courts to determine whether Sokolov's claims of trade secret theft hold water or whether SIL's countersuit exposing alleged deceptive practices carries more weight. These kinds of cases can take months, if not years, to fully resolve. And in the meantime, both firms will continue practicing law, competing for clients, and fighting this battle not only in courtrooms but also in the court of public opinion. For now, what we're seeing is a rare and dramatic look inside the inner workings of major law firms that usually prefer to keep their strategies and operations private. Whether it's about digital playbooks, marketing tactics, or alleged conspiracies, one thing is clear: this fight isn't just about who's right or wrong. It's about who controls the narrative, who protects their reputation, and ultimately, who comes out of this storm looking stronger. And with both sides throwing heavy punches, this is a story that's far from over, and one that could redefine the competitive landscape of Boston's legal market. As this courtroom showdown continues to develop, one thing is certain: the case between Sokolov Law and Jason Stone Injury Lawyers is far more than just a dispute between two Boston firms. It's shaping up to be a pivotal battle that could set precedents for how intellectual property, digital assets, and even business ethics are handled within the legal industry. Both sides are holding firm, each painting the other as the aggressor, and until a judge weighs in, the public will be left to follow the back and forth with great curiosity. For the legal community, potential clients, and even rival firms across the country, this lawsuit highlights just how competitive and high stakes the business of law has become.